Hey everyone, and welcome to this video on the new moon in Leo. This is an exciting one full of lots of potential for manifesting. You will not want to miss it, so stay tuned. I'm Cassandra of Saffron Sage Astrology. Today we're going over the significance of the new moon in Leo happening on July 28th at 10:54 a.m. Pacific time at 5 degrees of Leo. So in this video, we're going over the collective energies. We will go over the major and minor aspects. Then we'll go through the different rising signs. And at the end, I have a special offer. So make sure you stay till the end so you can find out how to enter for your chart to be featured in an upcoming video. The major aspects for this new moon in Leo are only two, but they are really, really good ones. Number one is the trine to Jupiter. This is a great thing you want to see in any new or full moon, is that trine from either Jupiter or Venus, those being the benefics, the good planets in the chart. So this trine to Jupiter, really positive, especially for things that require action, that you're initiating. Aries being a cardinal sign, you know, that initiating power comes in, the ability to start something, get something started, or increase the energy of something is very high for this lunation. So if you want to be busy, you want to be active, you want to jump into something, things like business, startups, or even if you already have a business or something, getting more clients, or, you know, making more money, or going into a new field, it's a really good time to set intentions for those things. Now, not everyone is going to be starting something with a bang, but anything in your life that you want to start with a bang, that is the kind of thing you want to set your intention for with this lunation. It's a really good one for energy, but it is explosive. It is quite explosive, and we'll talk more about that later in the video. The other significant aspects in this lunation are Mars conjunct the North Node in Uranus, as well as Mars and Uranus squaring over to Mercury in Leo. We will talk about what this means. Now, starting with the major aspects in this conjunction to Varuna, this means that we have more manifesting power in this lunation, because Varuna is known as this Indian creator deity who created the heaven and the earth, and determined their limits. He also made sure the sun crossed the sky every day. So when we have Varuna infused into a lunation, it creates new beginnings for us to possibly put limits, which is interesting with the trine to Jupiter, because Jupiter will expand. One of Jupiter's problems is it has no limits. It doesn't know when to quit. This is one Jupiter problem. Even though Jupiter is a positive planet, too much of a good thing is still too much. So what can happen is, I think with Varuna here, we have the potential to expand, and we have the potential to know what our limits are. I also think it will be important to know what our limits are when setting intentions with this lunation, because it's almost as if we need to really be mindful of what we can handle, or that we can handle what we're asking for, or that we're willing to step up to the level needed to do what we want to do and be in integrity with what we're doing. So another thing that we can see with Varuna is the gain or loss of reputation. And this is why in the beginning I said for this lunation, it's a great time for new beginnings, but only if you're willing to be in integrity with whatever you're doing. Now, I know a lot of people watching this are not the kind of people who are going to go be shysters, but you cannot be in integrity without having bad intentions. You cannot be in integrity if you tell someone you're going to do something and your way of describing it isn't quite in alignment with what they thought they were getting. So there are many ways we can not be in integrity. We can, even just working two jobs to the point where we can't do them both well, and we're not able to give what we said we were going to give. Not knowing our limits, this feels like a very strong energy to be talking about during this, with that Jupiter trine plus Varuna conjunction, something to watch out for. Whenever Varuna is involved, we want to make sure we can keep our word and we realize the limits of what we're doing, and we don't push too far past our own limits, or we don't end up not keeping our word, because the idea with Varuna is balance in all things, and it's almost like whatever you've put in, you will get back. So have you been in integrity with everything you're putting in? Have you been someone who, are you trustworthy? Are you acting in a way that lives up to the reputation you want to have? And I also think with this, these energies, the trine to Jupiter and Aries from Leo, from the lunation in Leo, plus that Varuna in Leo, sometimes one of the negative sides of Leo, and I'm not attacking any Leo person, but the negative side of Leo is the desire to be liked can be so strong that there's more of an acting going on, and we need to act in life sometimes. We need to be able to act how we are, or act how we need to be, so that we can get things. A lot of the spiritual community might be triggered by the idea of acting in a certain way instead of just being. But the thing is, if we don't act like we're trustworthy, people don't know we're trustworthy. We have to act like the kind of person we want people to know that we are. And sometimes that involves acting. And, with the spiritual community, we want to just be, and I know this because I want to do this. I want to just be myself and have everyone like me, or have everyone know that I have good intentions. But people don't know you have good intentions until you show them. You give them reasons to believe that you have good intentions. People don't know you're trustworthy unless you show them or tell them, or, give them those examples. So part of this lunation, I think, is going to be dealing with our reputations, our images, our public image, our image among our friends, whatever areas of life are most active for you, your image in that area. And now some of us are going to need more of that Leo energy, where we're more Aquarian in nature, whether you have Aquarius placements or not. If you're the kind of person who likes to be behind the scenes and not get credit and put other people in the spotlight, that imbalance might show up. If you're more Leo in nature, more look at me, I want to be seen, nothing wrong with that. Okay, the spiritual community thinks there's something wrong with that, and there can be if it's so imbalanced, but we all need pride and confidence. We all need those Leo qualities of warmth and generosity. So putting this all together with the Varuna conjunction and the trine to Jupiter from Aries, this feels to me like many of us will be starting things that, again, are fun projects, may have to do with entertainment, Leo type things, our self-expression. That could be something like how we dress, how we look. We might all be a little bit more focused on, do we look the part, and what do we need to do to look the part? Again, some of us, it'll be more about the Jupiter and Aries side of initiating. What are we starting? What do we want to get going? What do we want to spark in our lives? And we do need to talk about this Uranus-North Node Mars conjunction before this video ends, to put it all in perspective. Another thing about the Jupiter trine to this new moon also is going to infuse possible Jupiterian themes into whatever we're starting. That can be things like the law, studying, being a pilot, traveling, anything to do with travel, foreign people, foreign affairs, other countries, foreigners. It can also do with philosophy, the meaning of life, our understanding of faith, our belief systems, our belief that everything's going to work out. Leos tend to be more on the optimistic side in general, not always, but in general. Leo is a sign that will just want to lift people up and feel like everything's going to work out, and we're in this together, and let's do it, friends. There's just this camaraderie that you can feel when Leos are balanced and living in the the highest potential of that sign. And the same with Jupiter and Aries is a little bit more of a punch, a little bit more of a punch in the gut, a little bit more of a, I'm willing to fight for what I want. And some of us may have some situations where we need to sort of defend our reputation, or we need to sort of, put boundaries up, or somehow go after in a more forceful way what we're trying to accomplish. With Jupiter and Aries, that is force, but it's force in a positive way, if that makes sense. It's like fighting for a cause that is worth fighting for. It's fighting for your religion. It's fighting for your belief system. It's fighting for your right to believe and think how you want to think, and say what you want to say, and be who you want to be. All right, moving on now to the other significant aspects, starting with Mars conjunct the North Node and Uranus. So looking at this chart, Mars is at 15 degrees, Uranus is at 18 degrees, and the North Node is at 19 degrees of Taurus. These will meet up and make the exact conjunction on the 1st. So that's only 2 days after this new moon. And because of this, even though the conjunction is exact on the 1st, it's still considered an aspect here infused into this new moon. But the difference is that Mars is applying to the conjunction. So when we have an applying conjunction in astrology, that tends to mean we're coming into that energy. So for the next 6 months, the energy is infused with this feeling of something about to pop off, something having some pressure. Mars-Uranus is pressure. I have a whole video on this aspect alone. If you want more on this, check that video out. But the quick version here is that we could have sudden changes related to Mars-type things in our lives. Mars rules action, and it's in Taurus, the sign of the land, the sign of houses, housing, the markets, housing market and financial markets, in the sign of our own money, in the sign of our own resources, our enjoyment of life, our pleasure. So we can have motivation to make changes. We can have a feeling like something has to give, like we could feel some pressure here. With Mars-Uranus, there is pressure. Sometimes that pressure gets released in the form of anger. Okay, that does happen. People with this in their natal chart will have explosive anger that just builds up and one day gets released. So if you're feeling pressure under this aspect, it's a good idea to do anything that you do to release that pressure valve. But it can also be a good pressure to finally have the freedom we desire in a certain area. Uranus rules freedom, rebellion, the internet, astrology, science, technology, anything online, electricity, many other things, but those are the things on the top of my head. So having the planet of war, the planet of aggression, the planet of boundaries and fighting and desire coming into that conjunction, it's like, Mars will kind of stimulate Uranus, and Uranus will stimulate Mars. Uranus and Mars are both stimulating planets when it comes to how they affect the other planet. And so this can also be some agitation. So we may be feeling at the same time as all these good things are happening, it is almost like we might just feel agitated just more and more so in areas of life where we don't have the freedom we want to have. Because, Leo is about self-expression, and, Jupiter in Aries. Aries is about going after what you want. And, Uranus is about freedom. And it sometimes is a freedom to be your weird ass self. So we may just be feeling like we got to make changes in areas where we don't have that freedom. Now, Mars and Uranus, Uranus aspects will inspire freedom, but we don't always have the structure in our lives that gives us the ability to jump out of our problems. And it's not always the aligned thing to do, right? So, for example, everyone has a Uranus return when they're roughly about 40-ish. Everyone has a Uranus opposition when they're roughly 40-ish, which is when Uranus opposes their natal Uranus. Have you ever heard of a midlife crisis? Where guys will go out and buy a sports car. Some people will jump into relationships with people who are half their age. There's a need to prove you still got it. And you'll feel, oftentimes everyone with this placement will feel like they want to leave a situation, but not everyone does. Some people are like, no, I'm committed to this marriage. I'm going to deal with these feelings. Other people are like, bye, peace out. We get to choose how we're going to deal with the freedom that Uranus makes us want to have. Are we going to, jump out of our commitments? Are there commitments that we've made that are not working for us that we need to jump out of? Or are we going to, choose to do the Capricorn thing and be like, no, I'm in this for the long haul? So that's what I have about that aspect. And with the North Node here, it just makes it more about where are we going in our lives? Where are we, what do we need the most freedom from? Are we trying to get out of a living situation or get into a different one? Are we trying to have more time, retire sooner, enjoy our lives? How are we inspired right now to have the freedom to be ourselves and do what we want in our own lives and enjoy it? That is what this new moon to me is going to be about. Okay, so we also have Mars and Uranus, that conjunction, making a square to Mercury in Leo during this new moon in Leo. So this really brings a bit of an internal tension between the pride of Leo, the desire to put your whole heart into things. That is a lot of what Leo and Taurus will do. Is they'll be all in. They'll just be totally invested, right? It's with Leo, it's like there's a presence, there's a full investment in the presence, which is why Leo can be like actors and people who get in the spotlight, not always, but sometimes, because it's like they're fully there with you. And you just want to be with them. You just want to be present with them. You want to know what's happening in their lives. So having Taurus here, it kind of grounds and stabilizes that same energy of putting your whole heart into things. There can also be more awareness of power and money with this square because, Leo wants luxury and so does Taurus. These are two signs that are definitely going to appreciate the finer things in life. And so it can bring even if you're not someone who wants luxury, it can bring our attention to areas of life where we want more. We want to be able to receive and enjoy more. We can also overlook the reason why with this square, especially if we have these placements in our chart. So if you have a lot of Taurus or Leo energy, this square can actually, the worst case scenario with a Leo-Taurus square is someone who just wants nice things, but they don't care how they get it. Not everyone with Leo and Taurus that's not gonna apply to everyone. But that's like the worst side of this energy is getting rich at all costs. So we could see that theme in our lives, or we could really need to look at our reasons why we want things. Are we able to deliver what we want to receive? Are we giving the right amount of whatever to get what we want back? Are we being greedy? That's a question we might need to ask ourselves, some of us. With Leo and Taurus too, there's almost like a focus on producing, production, producing, these aspects being strong in the chart. Not everyone watching this is going to go produce something, but for those people where that applies to their life, producing a product, producing a new service, producing a new show, whatever you might produce, whether it's a good or a service, there might be a desire to produce something new. So now on to the signs. You can watch your sun, moon, and rising. Just know that your rising will be the most accurate for what's happening in the external world, where the sun and moon are more about what's happening internally, how it feels. So starting with Aries rising, sun, moon, and rising, we have the sun at 5 degrees of Leo. That is happening in your 5th house, trining over to Jupiter in your 1st house of identity and life changes. This is about life direction. So I would think some Aries are going to be starting new things related to self-expression, creativity, children. It can be a new cycle when it comes to either your kids, your creativity, how you express yourself, or other things related to children or dating. Dating is another one we see in that 5th house, especially the fun new side of dating, like new relationships or new romance. Because once it gets serious, then it moves over to the 7th house. So this is new beginnings in your creativity, in your self-expression. You may be feeling like you're starting new things. You might have some kind of cause and effect happening with your dating life with that Varuna conjunction to the sun. You might realize you want to have more fun at this time. The 5th house is the fun house, so Aries and Aries rising might just want to have more fun. And with Jupiter there, you might, in that Aries, in that 1st house, you might be the one initiating new projects, new ways to experience pleasure, enjoy yourself, new projects relating to kids, relating to your kids or other people's kids, or other new projects relating to how you express yourself, how you show up in the world. This could have, this could be like, working on changes to your body, or getting new clothes, or doing your hair differently, any kind of physical changes. It could also be for some moving or making more trips to places you enjoy more, doing more things, getting out more, doing more things that you find entertaining. I do feel this is a really good, lots of good vibes on starting new things, having fun for Aries and Aries risings. Now moving on to the next sign, which is Taurus. Taurus and Taurus rising. This is happening in your 4th house of home, your foundational, your emotional foundations in life. So new beginnings when it comes to either your home, your house, matters of the home, which could even include real estate or working from home. Or this can also be new beginnings in terms of your family of origin, your ancestry, or your own emotional security. trining over to Jupiter in the 12th house. 12th house planets are the things about ourselves we don't always see as easily. And so having that trine there is going to be, this might be something where you realize something that you've always wanted to do when it comes to your home that you never let yourself do before. There can also be more faith that you gain from isolation. Some Taurus or Taurus rising may do a retreat or do something to get away more, do more meditating. With Jupiter in that 12th house, it might just expand your desire to get quiet with yourself more, work privately, work on projects that you do alone. Really, that 12th house is going to be the alone time. And making a trine, though, to that 4th house, it's like spending time at home alone that you just want to spend, right? Or going to a retreat or finding a new place to meditate or other things that are quiet and relaxing and connect you to God or your faith that make you feel filled up and emotionally satisfied. So I see this as a really great transit for all those Tauruses out there. Moving on now to Gemini. So for Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you guys, this is happening in your 3rd house. 3rd house of communication and making a trine up to your 11th house of friends. So Gemini and Gemini Rising, Gemini Sun and Moon, you guys may be having more experiences where you're just chit-chatting more, you're talking more. You might be more focused on matters that relate to like being heard or expressing what you know, teaching, learning, or buying more books about something you love to listen to or read about, right? With Jupiter there, this can be buying more spiritual books, joining a group of friends who are studying something that is, spiritual or mind expanding in nature. You could join new groups of people with that Jupiter in the 11th. This can be something like a mastermind or a online group or a in-person group, a professional network, meetup groups, any kind of thing that a bunch of people go to, you might start doing. Or, you may find more joy in it, more conversations that last all night about the meaning of the universe. That could be another way this shows up. The 3rd house also relates to our transportation, our siblings. So for some Geminis and Gemini risings, it might be a time where you, maybe work on your vehicle or have something related to how you get around, be a theme that a new beginning starts. Some might just be carpooling with friends more. It really can vary how it goes, but this new moon in fire signs for you, 3rd and 11th house, it's expansion and growth related to your mind, your friends, your thoughts, your communication, your knowledge, and, doing it with people. So that's what I have for Geminis and Gemini risings. For Cancers, this new moon is happening in your 2nd house of money, possessions, what you have and what you own, down to the food you eat in your fridge. And Jupiter is trining from your 10th house of career. So this is definitely a money-focused new moon for Cancers and Cancer risings. Some of you may have a new beginning financially. Some of you may also have a desire to expand your skills or somehow get a promotion or, really step up to the next level in your career or public life. And, Jupiter there makes that more of a possibility. So it might be something like you are figuring out what skills you need to do that next level of, work or clients or, whatever you're working on. Or it can also be, something where you are making some investments into yourself so you can have more money later. You may find with Jupiter in the 10th, often this is a time where we reap the rewards of whatever we were doing like 4 years before that, when Jupiter was in our 6th house of work. So whatever, thankless work you might have been doing back 4 years ago or starting 4 years ago, sometimes when Jupiter is in that 10th house, if we were working on something, that only applies if you were doing it, then we start to see the results. Now, whether those results are amazing or not really depends on what phase of life you are in when it happened and all that kind of stuff, right? If you're retired, well, maybe not as much of that, but it totally depends. What else here? Some cancers are just simply like buying new stuff at this time, right? Because second house rules your possessions, and new beginning with your things could just be you got a new couch and now you get to sit on it. And, because you have a job or because you're working, you're able to do that. So it depends on which cancer rising you are. But the themes here are financial new beginnings with possessions, new beginnings, buying new stuff or making plans to buy new stuff or make more money or grow financially or even invest in the future. And that Jupiter in the 10th house being basically blessings from your job or your boss or your career or potentials to expand and grow more. So that being said, now moving on to our Leos. Leos, this is happening in your first house of identity, and it trines up to Jupiter in the 9th house of your meaning of life. So Leos may find they want to embark on new quests for the meaning of life. They may want to be reading new books, joining new classes, going on retreats. If they can't go on retreats, learning about new things, learning about the mind, learning about psychology or the reasons why people do the things they do. Anything connected to your faith, your belief system, and the meaning of life. You may also start new things, other things related to Jupiter. So that could be travel. It could be things dealing with foreigners, things dealing with the law or publishing. Those Leos and Leo risings and Leo sun and moons who write books. This might be a time to launch a book. I'm not saying you should go do that if you weren't already going to, but for those of you who that applies to, there may be some focus on that. What book should I write? Or, what is the most important thing in my life? With Jupiter transiting that 9th house, sometimes 9th house transits just put the question in our head, what is most meaningful? And with the new moon here in your sign of you, your identity, your body, where you live, where you work, who you consider yourself to be. There may be some questions or thoughts about expanding who you consider yourself to be through many possibilities, right? Maybe having a kid, having a family, not having a family, moving, where you live, who you're friends with, what you believe in, anything that you consider part of who you are. This might be a time where you're trying to or wanting to initiate change. This is a very, very, there's a lot of positive potential in this transit for Leos and Leo risings and Leo moons who want to make positive changes, especially if it's for the purpose of feeling like life is more meaningful. So that is what I have for Leos. Moving on now to Virgo. For Virgo and Virgo rising and Virgo moons, this is happening in your 12th house of isolation. So this can be a new beginning in your private time. You might have more time to yourself, and that can be perhaps after some time of not having enough. You might meet someone and you two go off together and spend more time alone. There might be, so that private time in that 12th house, even though it does feel like contemplation, and usually, what gets us closer to God or understand our own subconscious mind, there can still be other 12th house themes, especially with Jupiter being in that 8th house of intimacy. So it's almost like, yes, there's time for privacy, but maybe it's privacy with a new lover, or maybe it's privacy with a current partner who now you have a chance to get away together, or just, have that time behind closed doors. This can also be a time where you have new beginnings related to 8th house matters. This could have to deal with things like taxes, things like merging in business partnerships, your spouse or your partner's money. It could also have to do with sexuality. The whole theme of sexuality can show up in any way. So it's not always just having a new partner, right? It could be the sexuality, it has a lot of things. Teaching sexuality, learning about it, working on your own or making your own better, or selling products, or whatever aspect of sexuality is more connected to your life. Virgos and Virgo risings, right now with Jupiter transiting that sign, there is more potential to grow in your own sexuality or become more intimate with people or break down barriers to intimacy, especially with Chiron here in that 8th house, where it's like maybe seeing the ways that you've held yourself back from getting close to people and allowing yourself to get closer to people. But there could be some kind of theme too here with, and Virgo, I think you guys had this on the last one, this theme of like, maybe not wanting to be as close to people as they want to be to you, or needing to somehow, with that Jupiter in Aries, that sign of boundaries, the sign of like, get off my lawn. It might be a time where you have to tell someone to get off your lawn, metaphorically speaking. So whatever that looks like, not every Virgo is going to have to fight for their certain level of privacy, but that could be a theme of privacy. You have to kind of set a boundary for privacy. But really overall, it's a new beginning in your connection to spirit or your subconscious mind, and understanding why you do the things you do. Really, really strong influence here. So if you're wanting to work with these energies, you can definitely do any kind of work that explores the depths of your own psyche and expands it. Expand your mind, expand your awareness. Jupiter makes it better. So, there's an easier, even if it is difficult naturally, stuff you're trying to do, Jupiter will help. Jupiter will help make it just a little bit better. So that's what I have for Virgos and Virgo risings. That 12th house can also be new beginnings related to the themes, and this might be work or someone else in your life, of mental health, addiction, suffering, silent suffering. So this does not mean all Virgos are going to suffer silently right now, but that there might be new themes dealing with those topics in your life. If you work with people in mental health, you might have new themes, new beginnings in that sector of life. If you have friends who are in addiction, in recovery, that theme might show up. So it's not always you having that. Now, there is a potential for Virgos and Virgo risings to have some kind of loss, a new beginning that has some kind of loss attached to it. However, and take this with a grain of salt, because it is a general reading. It feels like there might be good in the bad with that. There might be, with Jupiter here, with this new beginning in Leo, with the theme of expansion, I almost feel as if something is lost at this time for Virgos and Virgo risings and Virgo moons even, that possibly it's a thing that needed to be released for the purpose of that expansion of your own psyche, or your own, your own personal growth and transformation. And I don't say that lightly, but it does feel like if something is lost, not everyone will lose something, but if it is, that it may be something that needed to be released, or that the releasing of it helps in some way to move forward. Okay, moving on now to the next sign, which is Libra. Libras and Libra risings. This is happening in your 11th house of friends and hopes and dreams. And it's trining over to Jupiter in your 7th house of partnerships. Really, really good energy on this one around meeting new people, getting closer to people, people in your social media network or your in-person network becoming closer to you. Friends becoming partners, friends becoming business partners. Things like that are possible here too. It's also possible that your current relationship, if you're coupled, creates opportunities for you to, tap into your hopes and dreams, or get more connected with friends, or do more things in the community or in whatever, group of people you associate with. That's also a theme. The public or audiences are themes we see in that 11th house. So whatever your audience is, even if it's a customer base, or your Instagram feed, there's new beginnings in this area of life for Libras and Libra risings. And, these are pretty simple energies. The 11th house is pretty good. The 7th house is angular. Jupiter's there. It just feels like good energy for you guys in your friendships, in the groups that you join at this time, especially with like networking. Libras and Libra risings, you guys could be really, really networking at this time with Jupiter in that 7th house. And these placements, this is like a beautiful time for Libras and Libra risings to network, to leverage your connections and climb up that ladder of success. Now, if you're not in a position where that matters to you, there can still be a time for friendships, connections, getting together with people. I mean, you guys are doing this all the time anyway, most of you guys, but still, it's just good energy on like meeting new people. Really also making sure you want to keep your word when it comes to the new people you're meeting, that you don't make promises that you can't deliver on. That's the only thing I would say to watch out for. And possibly too, making sure the people you're meeting, if they're making promises, do your best to kind of do your due diligence to make sure they can cash in on what they're saying they can do. So now moving forward with the next sign, which is Scorpio and Scorpio risings, Scorpio moons. You guys have this happening in your 10th house of career and trining down to Jupiter in the 6th house of work. So this is definitely a professional, money or work focused transit. This new beginning in career could be, for Scorpios and Scorpio risings, you guys could be setting new career goals. You could be getting promotions. You could start a new cycle in work or in your business, whatever you do, or in your public life. So even if you're trying to get a business going, this could be a new cycle. And with Jupiter in that 6th house, oftentimes when Jupiter's in the 6th house, this is not always the time where we get the results. This is often a time where we start the project, we start the work, and we're in the apprenticeship stage. So if you are in the apprenticeship stage, this is totally consistent with what's happening with your transits right now. With Jupiter in that 6th, it gives you more work. It's not always glorious. So for some, Scorpio risings, you guys may have more to do, and it may not be something that you're going to get back. Right? So sometimes you have to take care of more errands, or you have more paperwork to set up a business. It's like, yes, you might get that back later, but filing the business license, you're not going to get money from that. It's the stuff you have to do is Jupiter in that 6th house. So you might be feeling like you got to do more right now. You might be busier, but with Aries and Leo being the signs here featured, there is a feeling of new beginnings, self-expression, new fresh energy and movement. So if you've been stagnant or wishing your career would move forward, this is a really good time to initiate things that are career or public life related. And if you're in a phase where career isn't significant, it can just be whatever your role is in life. So if you're retired, what is your role now? Moving that forward, you can just apply it to all of that. And, for that Jupiter transiting that 6th house, often the real rewards don't come until 4 years later when it goes up to the 10th. I'm not promising that you will be the most successful millionaire in 4 years, but that the work you do now could be foundational, that's setting you up for a longer trajectory, depending on other things, a lot of other things. So no guarantees on these general readings, but that's what I have for Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Moving on now to Sag and Sag risings. This is happening in your 9th house of the meaning of life and trining down to Jupiter in your 5th house of romance and dating and fun and pleasure and children and self-expression. So this could be a really fun transit for Sages to explore something new. Some Sages and Sag risings will want to travel at this time or get out of their current environment, even just getting out of town for the day, getting out of the normal, your normal routine, whatever that is. Others will have some kind of experience with a foreigner possibly, or foreign things, foreign languages, learning something new. You could take a new course of study at this time. You could expand your faith in the meaning of life at this time. And with Jupiter trining from that 5th house, this is new possibilities related to fun and pleasure mostly. So for some, maybe it's your kids doing something that brings your life a lot more meaning, but for many, it's going to be things that you enjoy, getting out and doing those things. And that 9th house, really, it's about the personal quest for fulfillment. So bringing up themes of what matters most to me. When we have transits to that 9th house, that's the question we're asking. What does it all mean? What does it all mean? And how can we get almost how can we get the most meaning out of the time we have here? So there might be some, also with, Jupiter transiting Aries in your 5th house with Chiron there, and as it, it's going to retrograde back, so it's not going to hit Chiron till next year, but there will be more themes coming up for Sages and Sag risings around letting go of the barriers, any barriers you may have to having fun and enjoying your life. So really great transit for personal transformation from the perspective of knowledge, really understanding more about the meaning of life, that deeper, more thorough sense of meaning and fulfillment, and possibly dating, possibly romance, possibly some good things coming your way in that sector. So we're moving on now to Capricorns. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this is happening in your 8th house of transformation, trining down to your 4th house of home and the feeling of being okay in your own skin. So for these transits for Capricorn, this is a very emotional one for you guys. And I know that some of y'all are like, what? I don't even have those. Capricorns, I love you guys. Okay, so this new moon in the 8th house, it's like new beginnings in possibly, if you are in an intimate relationship, if you're dating someone already, this could be a time to bring that to a deeper level, or even friendships to a deeper level. New moons in the 8th house can also bring matters in focus around paying off debt, around taxes, around other people's money in any way that affects your life at this time. If you're coupled, your partner could have a new beginning in their financial life at this time, how it, especially if their finances affect you. Okay, so then what else do I want to say about the 8th house? 8th house is also, the transformational house of like becoming more than who we were before, our stretching outside of our comfort zone. So you might have some kind of new risk you're taking. I'm not saying you should. I can't tell that from a general reading, but some Capricorns and Capricorn risings, Capricorn moons are going to want to go take a risk, want to go expand, or have a situation in their life that brings them to a new level. The 8th house also does represent mediumship, so some Capricorns and Cap risings could have a new beginning in that sector, but it doesn't always show up that way. It's also sexuality. So for Capricorns or Capricorn risings who, for whatever reason, sexuality is a bigger theme in their life, in whatever way that applies, no judging, that's going to be new beginnings, okay? So you can have a deeper connection. You can expand your limits, sexual or otherwise. With this transit, Jupiter in the 4th makes me feel like some Capricorns and Cap risings might be on a personal quest for transformation for the purpose of feeling better in your own skin. That might be a focus at this time. For others, it may be more about home. So this is a more intimate, more private transit for you guys. That home life is like when you get home at the end of the day and you shut the door and you lock it behind you, then what do? That's what happens in the 4th house. So, that and that 8th house being, usually also behind closed doors, not always, but are really, really deep connections with people. So these are good energies between these two areas of life. So connections with people, allowing you to feel better when you're by yourself. Positive things happening in the home that potentially have to do with money or investing can also come up. For some who this relates to, possibly investing in real estate. I'm not saying you should. I don't give advice on those things. These are just areas of life that could be highlighted at this time. Now, the 8th house does also rule death, but with these trines, the only time I would say, if death is already a topic in your life that's activated in some way, like you work as a death doula, or you have always wanted to, or something else where it's relevant to your life, there could be a new beginning with that. But for most people, that's not going to apply. And that's how, these things work. Now, for some Caps or Cap risings, you could have someone else in your life be dealing with death, and there's a theme like that, right? So like your friend's dog dies or something like that, where death becomes a closer part of your life during this time. But I don't predict death in my readings, and I certainly would not predict it on a general reading. So just don't think that because the 8th house rules death that every transit someone's going to die. Sometimes it happens, but we're not fear-mongering on this channel. So moving on now to Aquarius. For Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you guys have this happening in your 7th house of partnership and trining down to your 3rd house of the mind, learning, siblings, and your immediate environment. So there might be some themes, new beginnings. For single Aquarians, this would be a good time to meet someone if you're trying or you're wanting to. For those who are already coupled, you may just have a new beginning in your relationship where you and your partner maybe are focusing on communication. Great time to work on communication skills in a relationship. Really, really good energy for that. It may also be other stuff totally unrelated to communication. The third house also ruling transportation. So some Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you guys might be thinking about like, you know, with your partner, like who comes to whose house and you know, the carpooling side of it. Or it could be many other things where you're using your, you know, you're going on more trips with Jupiter in that third house. Sometimes you'll have to run more errands. You'll be busier. You'll literally be driving more. And that driving more with that seventh house aspect could have to do with like driving more to meet a new lover, driving more to meet a business partner that you got to work on a project with, or doing something with a close friend. Close friends fall in that seventh house. So Aquarius and Aquarius rising could have a new cycle with a new close friend or an old close friend where you end up doing more stuff together and going more places together. Things like this can be activated. Again, with Jupiter in that third, there really still could be some themes around like communicating or communicating what you know, how to communicate what you know to clients or to people one-on-one. That can also be a theme coming up during this new moon for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Now moving on to Pisces. Pisces and Pisces rising and Pisces moon, this is happening in your sixth house of work, routines, what you do on a day-to-day basis, and the things you have to get done. And it's trining over to Jupiter in that second house of money. So this could be a time where you are literally doing more stuff to make money. You might start new projects to make money, but it feels like with sixth house and second house and not 10th house, to me, this is going to aspect the sixth house being the work you do, the second house being the money you make, but there's no 10th house of reputation being aspected here, unless you already have a 10th house planet that this is trining. But basically, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to be doing the work and getting the money, but you may not get the fame or the recognition, or it just may not be a time where you're focusing on that. So the sixth house is more of a house of service and apprenticeship. It's like the humble work that we do. Although with that Jupiter second house trine, it's a really good time to start new things to make money. You may just naturally be doing more to make money. You might be trying to get a raise. You might be upping your skills or your self-esteem or what you bring to the table. You might be buying new stuff and you enjoy it in your schedule. So for some Pisces and Pisces risings, it won't be working hard to make money. It'll be spending money to enjoy. Right? Because your sixth house can also be like you watching TV all day, or you watching a new TV you just bought, or you like, spending your time doing something you want to do with those hours that you have in your day. So it can be like improving your quality of life in some way in terms of your schedule, your routine. There's more focus though at this time on routines, on possibly a new health routine, new diets, new work schedules, different work schedules, new ways of relating to how you spend your time. That's all things that can come into focus. But with Jupiter in this second house, it feels so positive, right? It feels like if you want to do new things, you have the resources now, or something might be freed up. Like we don't know with the new moon, whether it's like something is freed up and you have more time, or something is taken away and you have less time. A new responsibility is added, now you have to factor it in, or you start meal prepping and now you get to enjoy your life more because you're freed up and you don't think about what you're going to eat every day. There can be many other possibilities, but these two sectors of life seem to be working well together with this trine, with possibilities coming from the money house. So it feels like new beginnings in your work or your daily schedule, what you're doing, that things you're doing can bring more money, or more money helps that you, lose weight or do something related to your routine or your health. So that is what I have for Pisces and Pisces rising on this one. I'm doing this new special where you can actually win a chance to have your chart be the featured chart in an upcoming video. The upcoming video will have a relationship focus, and it's going to be a sample chart of relationship reading. So if you want to have a chance to win that, here's what you need to do. Comment, "I want in" on this video. That is all you have to do to be entered into this special offer. Comment, "I want in" under this video. The winner will be chosen randomly by me on August 1st, 2022. So make sure you comment, "I want in" under this video before then if you'd like to be entered. The winner will be announced in an upcoming video on this channel. So be sure you are subscribed if you want to know who the winner is. I also have a featured reading you need to know about. It is an aligned career profile. It's a 10-minute pre-recorded video by me, and I tell you about your career role, your ideal career environment, how to move forward in career based on what's the most aligned thing in your chart. So we talk about your midheaven ruler, what sign it's in, what house it's in, and what it all means together for you when it comes to career. This does not tell you what your career should be, but it gives you more information on what kinds of activities or fields or strengths you may have based on your astrology chart. This is not financial or career advice and should not be substituted for it. The aligned career profile is over 20% off right now through July 22nd. So make sure you get in on this deal before it goes away. Thank you all so much for your likes, comments, shares. Make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button and the bell to get more videos like this. I do reports every full and new moon and tons of other content on astrology. So make sure you're getting notified about all the amazing content I'm always coming out with. Thank you to everyone who's liked, shared, subscribed, commented, all the love you send my way. I appreciate you so much. And I will see you all in the next video.